and go.
Hi, this is Ram. I'm going to present Green Road system today. Today we have a couple of people judging me, Johann, Bibhu, and just three. I'm going to support COS, Great Ormond Street Hospital today for this one. Starting from the scenario, so about the company overview, this company is present in Europe at the moment, but they have plans to extend in Canada and USA next year. At the moment, they have multiple systems, and now they have chosen Salesforce to consolidate all the local systems into one. Going to the org strategy, we would be going with the single org strategy here, as I don't see any data residency requirement. And also we are not very close to hitting any technical limit. And also most of the time they have talked about streamlining their processes across the regions. Because this company is going to be present in multiple countries, we would be having multi-language and multi-currency enabled on the org. Going to the active and licenses, we have a couple of internal and external users. All internal users would be using the sales license, as they need to use sales objects like lead, order, and cases. And my external users, there are three external users. Installer manager would be using CC Plus license, as they need to use order and they need to be the super user. Installer and customer both would be using customer community license, as they need to be having sharing set. This concludes my external licenses. Now I'm going to the role and hierarchy. We have executive on the top. Under executive, we will have manager. Under manager, we will have the sales rep and design consultant. So this setup would be replicated in all the 10 regions that we have at the moment. Then we have the installer manager who would be working across the regions. So they would be directly reporting to the executive, and installer manager is my external user. We have two more external users who are going to use the customer community license, so they will not have any roles. Moving on to the system landscape. We have Salesforce in the middle. On Salesforce, we will enable my domain for single sign-on. And we are also going to have two community, one customer community, which would be used by the customers, and one the partner community, which would be used by the installers. And on Salesforce, we are going to have a couple of app exchange product. We will have Chargent for the payment. And then we have Konga Composer and DocuSign, which would be used in conjunction for, and the Konga Composer would be used for document generation, and DocuSign would be for e-signature. And we have Tableau CRM as well, which would be used for BI reporting. On top, we are going to have a native mobile app, which would be used by the internal users, and mobile users of native user app would be logging to Salesforce through auth user agent flow. And then we have got one existing systems, learning management systems, which I'm proposing to integrate with Salesforce through the Canvas application. And also backend of the LMS would be integrated with Salesforce through the ASP. And then on the right side, we are having the old CRMs, and data of the old CRMs would be migrated to Salesforce once Salesforce become available, and that will happen through ETL. And we are going to use bulk API of Salesforce to do that. We are also going to have the data warehouse, which would be used for, which I would be using for data archiving, and that would be also connected to the ETL. And then we have one on-premise system, which is a billing systems, and Salesforce would be integrated with this billing system through ESP. So we are making use of ESP for doing the protocol conversion, for retry mechanism, and for orchestration. So there would be no point-to-point integration in this scenario. And we are having SP application, which is a specialty plant application. And there is a mention over there that only the active users of SP applications will be able to log into that. So that's where I would be using Salesforce as the identity, and we will be having IDP initiated flow from Salesforce to log into the SP application. We are also having a couple of government websites, and Salesforce would be integrated with those government websites through ESP. On the right side, we have the LDAP, and where my internal users and installers, external users, are also maintained. So I'm proposing IDP for SAML initiated flow for single sign-on and for user provisioning and deprovisioning. On the left-hand side, we are having the social sign-on, which would be enabled to Salesforce through the OpenID. So this concludes my system landscape. Now moving on to the data model. So we have lead. Lead would be owned by the marketer. and the OWD of lead would be private. And then we have account. On account, we are also going to enable the person account. An account would be owned by the sales rep, and then it will have OWD as private. I'm projecting the 5 years data here. So we'll have 750,000 data in 5 years under account. Under account, we will have the contact, which would be in lookup relationship with account. And then under contact, contact would be used for enabling community users as the community users. And it will have around 1.5 million data in 5 years. OWD would be private. Under account, we will have location. Location would be also owned by the sales rep, and we will have OWD as private as well. And between account and location, we will have a lookup relationship, and location is my custom object. And we have another custom object, which is a potential project here, and that will be owned by the support rep, and OWD would be private. I'm making use of custom object rather than opportunity because I have the large volume and my external roles are limited, so I will not be able to use external opportunities. And also I don't see any other sales feature like opportunity team, forecasting, and all those. I think that custom object will make sense there. And then I'm also making use of order object, which represents my project object, and that would be owned by design consultant. And between the order and account, we will have the lookup relationship, and between the potential project and order, we will also have the lookup relationship. And we have got another custom object, which is invoice, which would be related to the order and to the account, to the lookup relationship, and that would be owned by sales rep, and OWD would be private. And we have another object case, which would be also owned by the sales rep, and OWD would be private, and that would be related to the account and contact through the lookup relationship. I'm also having one external object, which is my training object, and which would be related to sales to the users. This user will have internal users and external users both, which would be related to the training object. Here, in terms of LDV, I don't have a big LDV problem, but I see that we have a couple of objects where we will have more than 1.5 million data. And there I see that there may be some performance issues in the list view or in the reporting, or also if you're trying to query those data through the Apex. So I'll be suggesting a couple of things that we will make sure that we are using only the most used columns in the reports and in the list views. And also if needed, we can go for the custom indexing as well on a couple of objects. And also in the Apex query, we will be making sure that we are having the selective query if we need to. So that will reduce my LDV problem. And also at the same time, we need to have a conversation with the business to understand if you're going to keep all the data all the time in Salesforce, or if it becomes operationally not required, we can archive those data into my data warehouse as well by using the ETL tool. Okay. So that concludes my data model. Now I'm going to talk about the business scenario that I have. Starting from the project discovery and sales process. So marketer is my internal users who will be attending a couple of trade shows and conferences. And when they will attend those, they will identify some prospective customers, and they will create those prospective customers as my lead object in Salesforce. With the lead object will contain some details. Details like the installation budget, what they will have, the location, and the project start date, and all those information. And after that, my marketer will do the lead qualification, and by verifying the installment budgets and start date and couple of other things. And once my marketer would be satisfied, he will convert the lead to the account and contact, and also through the trigger, we would be creating the potential project record as well, which will capture the information coming from the lead. Then on potential project, we may have different type of potential projects, and that would be driven by the couple of conditions that we have. So based on the condition of the start date and the budget, we would be marking potential project as high priority or strategic and that will happen through the field update triggered through the flow. And also when the potential project will be marked as high priority or strategic, we will be posting to a chatter post to the chatter group of the sales team of that particular region. So that will be having a chatter post. And also for the strategic sales, strategic potential projects, we would be posting a chatter post to the public group of the strategic sales team that we are going to have. And that chatter post will happen through the flow. And also, and there is a requirement that, so if your potential project is of high priority and a strategic priority, that your sales rep needs to work on them within 5 days. If that will not happen, then their managers should be notified. And that's where I'm making use of schedule flow, which will run every day to check if potential project has not been updated within 5 days, then it will create a task for the manager. And also we have a requirement that if my customer has already done business with this company before, then we need to find the old sales rep who has worked with them, and that I would achieve through the trigger. And through the trigger, we'll find the same sales rep, and then we will also create a chatter post through the trigger to assign that sales, so that to notify the sales rep that there is a new potential project for the customer he has worked before. Then my sales rep will go to the potential project, and then we'll start filtering or start seeing the potential project through the list views. And after that, my sales rep needs to make a call to the customer and also need to book an appointment, and book an appointment will happen through the login event. And then my sales rep will go to the customer location and will start capturing a couple of information like videos, photos, and the location of the customer location. And that's where my sales rep would be using the standard Salesforce mobile app. That's where the videos and photos will be captured. I'm just making the assumption here that videos and photos will not be of more than 100 MB size. And for capturing the GPS location, we will have the lightning component through which longitude and latitude would be captured, and that would be saved on the location record on Salesforce. Okay. Based on the information what my sales rep will have, sales rep will generate an estimate, and that will be attached in the file. And because I'm assuming that this is going to be a fairly long sales process, so there will be frequent conversation between the sales rep and the customer. So we can have the approval of the initial process through the email itself, or we can utilize the approval process for doing that estimate, or it can happen on the chatter post itself. Once my customer would be satisfied with the initial estimate, my sales consultant will change the status of the record, and on change the status of the potential project, we will have a trigger, and that will basically create a project record, which is my order record in Salesforce. And on creation of the order record, we need to find a design consultant with the right skill who can be allocated on that project. And my design consultant skills are present in my training object. So we will have a trigger on order, which will find the design consultant based on the skills which would be required on the project, and will make the owner of that design order to that design consultant. That's how my design consultant will become the owner of this. Okay, and when the design consultant will be assigned, we will have a flow through which we would be sending the email alert to the customer. So that concludes my discovery and sales process. Now moving on to the design process that we have. So my design consultant will start work by creating design semantics, and that he will store in the file object. And here it is already mentioned that it will not be of more than 30 to 60 GB. Because my customer community would be using my customer community, so they will, through the sharing set, they would be able to access order, and if they can see the order, they can see the file also, and that's where they would be doing the collaborations. And once the customer will approve that, my design consultant needs to apply for a permit to the government application, to the government. Sorry, that I'll talk later. First, my one design consultant needs to reserve some plans once the customer has approved. And for that, my design consultant needs to log into the SPA, because my design consultant is the internal users, they will be able to log into SPA. And that's where my design consultant will book some plans. And I'm making the assumption here that we will have at least one unique ID which would be present in both the systems through which your project would be identified uniquely. My design consultant will book around 50 plants in that specialty plant application, and that would be reserved. If something changes, that my customer changes the plan, if an odd project needs to be canceled, so on there would be a status change in the on the order, and on change of that status, we will fire a platform event which will go to ESP, and ESP will then make a call to SPA to free all the reserved plants in the SPA application. That will happen on cancellation. So that is going to be my fire and forget call to ESP. And then once my project would have been approved, that will happen through the approval process. We will have the approval process written on order, which would be approved by my customers. And once the project would be approved or rejected, my customers should be able to provide some comments as well. So that would be enabled on the standard approval process. They would be able to provide some comments, and that would be visible in the Salesforce. Once that approval has happened, my design consultant needs to apply for a permit to the government website, and that will happen. I'm making assumption here that because we don't know how long that government website is going to respond. So I'm going to use the continuation class here. So from Salesforce, it will go from Salesforce, it will have a request and response call to ESP, and then ESP will make a call to the government website. But here I will be making use of continuation to make it asynchronous because I am assuming that it may take longer than expected. And also government will generally respond in 5 or 6, 7 days. So in the same call, we will also creating a task for the design consultant. So the design consultant can follow up with the customers after 7 days, because my government is going to respond directly to the customer. When the customer will get the email and the installation permit will not be granted, the project status will change to on hold. And then my customer and design consultant will collaborate again and for the reapplication. And when they are going to reapply again, we need to make sure that the original issued permit ID is also included in the call. So I'm assuming here that there will be only few information which would be sent to the government, from the government to the customer, and those information can be placed on the custom fields on other object itself. If there would be more field, then we can think about another custom object, but I'm assuming here that just a comment ID and a couple of other information which can be denormalized on the order object itself. And we will have the validation rule to make sure that whenever the reapplication is happening, and that permit ID is included in the call. Okay. And when the installation permit will be granted, my design consultant needs to find an installer who can do the job. And for that, we will be having a Lightning component. Lightning component will enable my design consultant to find the right installer based on the skill he would like to have. And then that's how my design consultant would be assigned to the order object. Now going to the project installment process that we have. So it will start from the installer. Installer will visit to the customer location, and then we'll start monitoring the design. We'll start reviewing the design semantics and all those information. And it is mentioned that they might not be connected to internet all the time. So we will be having, sorry, I didn't show here that we will be having a native mobile app for them, because we need to have the offline capability. And through that, they would be reviewing the semantics and everything with them. And once that will happen, then my installer needs to purchase all the plans which has been reserved by the design consultant for that project. So my installer is also a Salesforce user. They would be able to log into the SPA as well, and they would be able to find those projects which has been reserved for them based on the project ID. And that's where they would be doing all the purchase, and they will be capturing informations like cost per plant, quantity, and all those. And those things, I'm assuming that those information will stay in SPI itself. And if we need to see that in Salesforce through the Canvas application, we will be able to see those. No, sorry, not through the Canvas, because you are able to log into the SPI application directly. So those information will stay in SPI directly. And if you need to see those, you can directly go from Salesforce to there and would be able to see those information. I'm not proposing to bring any of those information from SPI to Salesforce. Okay, and then when all the plans would be installed, my customers needs to do the sign off, and that's where I'm making use of Sales DocuSign. So my customer can do the signature, and that will basically update the project record. And once that project record will be updated, that it has been signed by the customer, we will be having a usual flow through which we will fire a platform event. And the platform event will then make a call to ESP to create the billing record to the billing record, and then again my ESP will make a call, remote-in call to Salesforce to create the invoice record in Salesforce as well. So that is going to be a fire and forget call, and ESP will do the orchestration for me. And when the invoice record would be created, my customer should be able to do the payment. And for that, we are making use of Chargent app. And Chargent app would be through the Chargent app, my customer would be able to make the payment. And we need to make sure that we are not storing any credit card information to make it PCI compliant in Salesforce. And that's why I'm making use of Chargent, which would be through which we would be able to take the payment from the customer through the community. And because my customer is able to use the community, they would be able to raise case from the community itself. That concludes my business requirement. Now I'm moving on to the data migration requirement. So we have got a number of different legacy CRMs, and all those CRMs data needs to be migrated in Salesforce. And before all those data will be migrated, we will be doing a couple of stuff outside of Salesforce. Like we will be doing the data cleansing exercise, data standardizing, and data deduplications. And also we'll make sure that external IDs are created or identified outside itself. And before loading to the data, we will be doing the test load over there in one of the environment, which is a staging environment outside of Salesforce. And also it is mentioned that we need to have demographic data in Salesforce. I'm assuming that demographic means that account, customer, and location. So all those information needs to come to Salesforce. So here, and the order in which the data would be loaded is quite important. So first of all, we will load the load the account information, and then other related information like location projects would be upserted so that it can be automatically attached to the relevant records in Salesforce. So that concludes my migration requirement. And now moving on to the accessibility and visibility. So we have sales rep and design consultant who should be able to see the prospective green projects in their region only. So because we have OWD on most of the objects as private, only the owner of the person would be able to see those. And because a design consultant would be able to see their own record and all. And then the design consultants would be able to see that all the order and project record for that region, and for that would be enabled based on the owner-based sharing rule for that region we will have. My strategic sales team should be able to see the strategic priority cases. And my OWD on the private potential project is private, so we would be having the criteria-based sharing rule. And when the criteria would be when the potential project status would be strategic, it would be visible to all the strategic, to a public group of a strategic sales team, and that would be achieved through the criteria-based sharing rule. And in my strategic project sales team would be able to see all other projects and customers in their own regions, and that for that we are already having the owner-based sharing rule. My GRS managers would be able to see all the customers and green projects in their own region. So that will be enabled through the role hierarchy that we have. My installers will be able to see the customers and the project details and the design documents. Because my design consultant has assigned installer over here, so they would be able to, my installer is my external users, they would be able to see the order through the setting set. And but they would be also able to see the account through the implicit sharing that we will have from order to account. And because all the design semantics information are present in files, so they would be able to see all the files as well. My installer managers would be able to see all the customers and projects done by all of their installers. So that for that, my installers users would be given the super user access so that they would be able to see all the installer under him. My users should have the different languages and translated emails. For that, we are going to enable the translations. And also we are making use of Conga Composer, and Conga Composer, we would be creating different templates in different regions, and based on the locale of the user, that mail would be translated email or translated the different email templates would be picked for them based on the language they would have selected in their record. My customers will be able to log into Salesforce through the Facebook and Twitter, and for that I am having the auth provider created in Salesforce, and auth provider would be capturing information from the identity provider like Facebook or Twitter. We would be saving them in the auth provider, and then we are also creating a registration handler which will enable them to log in through the social sign-on. That completes my visibility and accessibility requirement. Now moving on to the reporting requirement. So we have design consultant who wants to see the ad hoc report of the installers who would have completed the training. And my training information is present in external objects. So we would be having the standard report, which will fetch the data from user and training reports, which would be shown to the design consultant. My GRS manager should be able to have the monthly run of the revenue. I'm here. The revenue information would be present in the potential project and other information. So we will be having a summary report for them. And this is again a standard report. We will have a summary report which will sum up the revenue in a month, and that would be shown to the manager. A manager would be able to see to which they will have access of. The installers should be able to run the ad hoc reports of the specialty plant application which they have reserved. Because my specialty plant applications are present outside of Salesforce, I'm going to make use of Tableau CRM, which will fetch the data from SPA, and that would be, we will be creating a Tableau report which will be visible to the installers. Because my installers are my external users, we will have to have a feature license given to them. And we also will be using a different permission set which will be assigned to the installer so that they can view the Tableau report. So that concludes my reporting requirement. I have, there is no project lifecycle, but I have drawn something here that we need to, because we are having a number of different systems and we have a number of different integrations, we need to have some kind of governance in place to make the project successful. And I'm proposing this governance structure here, and we will have a steering committee on the top, which the person in the steering committee would be taking decisions like setting the priorities, approving the budget, and all those different things. Under a steering committee, we will have the COE. Under COE, we will have two types of people, IT people and the business people. And IT people will contain people like role like technical architect, program manager, release manager, and test manager. And the business people, we will have the global product owner, sales lead, change management lead, and training. So on my COE people will will set some rules which would be followed by everyone in the project team. And we would be also having the couple of design review board, solution change review board, test management, change management review board. So all those things would be set by these people. I'm also going to recommend a new CI/CD pipeline here, and for my environmental strategy and for my testing strategy. So we are going to have dev instance on dev. They would be of type scratch org, and that's where my development will happen. And my developer will be doing the unit testing and mock and stub testing over there, because we have got a number of integrations present. Once my developer would be satisfied with it, would be done with the development, my developer will create a feature branch, and that branch would go to the release branch. Once the approval process will happen, there would be some governance that whenever they would be committing something, my developer will commit something to the code repo, it would be approved by my tech leads. And once the approval process will happen, then the feature branch will be merged with the release branch. And then as soon as the release branch will get some change, my tools like Jenkins will pick up the change and will deploy to the build environment, which is also a of type scratch.org. And that's where we will be doing the regression testing written in Selenium or Provar. And we would be also doing the static code analysis by tools like PMD. Once my build would be successful, it will be deployed to the QA environment, and that is of type DevPro, and that's where my testers would be doing the functional testing. Once that will be successful, it will be deployed to the UAT, and that which is of type full sandbox, and that's where my project SMEs would be doing the functional testing. In parallel to UAT, we are also having the staging environment, which is also of type full sandbox, where we'll be having the volume testing, migration testing, and performance testing as well. We need to make sure that before we'll do the performance testing, we need to inform Salesforce that we are going to do so. Once my UAT would be successful, it would be deployed to the production environment, and that's where we will be doing the smoke testing. And if there would be any issues in the production environment, we will have a hotfix environment of type DevPro, that's where my issues would be fixed. And then we need to make sure that whatever changes we are going to do in the hotfix would be replicated back in other systems as well. So this is going to be my environment strategy and the testing strategy. I have identified a couple of risks as well, which I'm going to talk here. We have got dependency risk, like mobile development. We are going to develop a native mobile app. We need to make sure that we have a separate mobile development team who can do the development on different platforms like Apple or Google. So that needs to be planned well. And we have large number of integrations, which is also a risk. So that's why we need to have the ESP people who can develop on the ESP should be present in the team as well. So with this, I think I have covered everything. Yeah, with this, I conclude my presentation.
Thank you very much, Ram. We will pause the recording now and come. Recording resumed. Let's go. Judge, go ahead.
Yeah, thanks, Ram, for your presentation. Can you just please explain me your justification in the data model of using the potential project as a custom object compared to the any standard objects around that?
Yeah, thank you for that. I actually considered opportunity as well, but I have around 750K account. And we have internal users as well who needs to collaborate on that. External users also, we need to collaborate on that. And if we will have 750 and maximum, you can have 500 external roles. So with 750K, even if I give just one role to one external account, I won't be able to achieve this. And that was the only reason I went with this potential project.
Can you explain this? What do you mean there? Sorry.
So whenever you create a community, whenever you enable one of the account as a community user, I guess we have the installer. So whenever you create account and whenever you enable that account as a community, it creates you roles, right? And if you are going to have 750K account, with 750K roles would be created minimum. Okay. That I cannot achieve because I can have only 500,000 roles.
Okay.
The limit.
And what is the implication here on using opportunities and not using opportunities? But a
if I use if I use opportunity, I will have to change the license of the installers, and so that would be the. I will have to change the license actually of the installers so that they can be able to see that as well. Then we have the customers who are collaborating on those potential projects. So the license would be changed for the customers as well.
As far as my assumption was that the customers and installers collaborate on the project object and not on the potential project. Is this something maybe I mistook here?
Yeah, so there is something here that whenever for the first time customers, my sales consultant generates a preliminary estimates, and that is also approved. So here it is mentioned that sales representative will generate a preliminary estimates, will send a copy to the customer. So I'm assuming that they would be collaborating as well here. And that's why they need to have customer community access. So they also need to see the potential project.
So what's your assumption around how this preliminary estimate looks like? Is this an...
it may be a simple file which can be uploaded, because this is a long sales process. So they may have, design sales rep may have multiple templates which they would be using, and which they can generate attachment which they can send to the customers as well. And also on the record also there would be a file where they can attach a document, and that's where they can do the conversation. Because my customer needs to collaborate with sales consultant, they need to have community access. So that's why, that is my assumption.
Can users external users collaborate with internal users around files?
Yes, if on the same record, if they have access of the same record, they both can collaborate on the same record, and they can see the files as well, whatever would be attached. And through the chatter also, they can see the file and collaborate.
Is there chatter available for files themselves?
No. So it's like you on the chatter, you can upload the files, you can attach the files, you can attach the attachment, and on which you can comment as well. But my internal user here, they would be able to collaborate because we have another one object here, potential project, and potential project will have a file, and that's where preliminary estimate will be present. And if my user is able to see the potential object, both internal and external, they can collaborate on the same record, and they can see the files also.
Okay, thank you very much.
Okay, can you go to your system landscape for me, please? Can you point me out which other systems you're retiring, or which other systems you're keeping in this landscape?
I forgot to cross this. This is the only system I'm retiring, old CRMs, and all other systems I would be keeping in.
Okay. And what's your IDP in this case? As in, can you explain that to me, please?
Okta, I would be going with Okta. I have not specifically called this, but yeah, Okta would be the one.
Any specific reason why you would go with Okta?
We have internal users and external users both, and we need to do some deep provisioning and provisioning. So Okta would be the best fit here.
So do you have any requirements where it talks about deep provisioning and provisioning?
It's not that actually, but I cannot have ADFS because it is for external users as well. And that's why I thought, and because we have LDAP as well in the system. So I thought Okta would make sense here. Okay. It's not AD, they have talked about LDAP. So that is my reason.
Can I go ahead?
Yeah.
In your system landscape staying here, you have 2 separate communities for customer and partners. Can you talk about the rationale why you have 2 different communities?
Yeah, customer community would be used by my customers, and they have a different login mechanism, which is social sign-on, and installers would be part of the LDAP. They have a different login mechanism because they have clearly 2 different login mechanisms. So I have created 2 different communities for them.
Can you have 2 different login mechanisms on the same community?
Yes, you can. You can have the My Domain enabled, and you can do whatever you want over there. But it is generally recommended that if you have 2 different, and also installer is completely different from the customers. So I assume that they might need different branding because they would be basically representing this company. So they will be represented as a partner.
Okay, what about cross-chatter, cross-org chatter collaboration? Is there any limitations you can think of?
Here, there is no problem because they would be collaborating on the same record. right? If you can have, and from the same record, you can see chatter coming from different community. But if you need to do outside of that, then there is a problem. Yeah.
Okay, thank you very much. Josh, you can go ahead.
Yeah. So in the system landscape, you have a government website, and you said you are going to use a continuous call actually because you do not know when the government website will reply. And the government website might have a delay of 5 to 6 days, right? It's mentioned in the scenario somewhere. So can you just walk me through how the continuation will help actually in this case? Can it wait till 5 to 6 days?
Maybe I didn't explain well. So what it mentioned in the scenario that government will respond in 5 to 6 days. Okay. So but here from Salesforce, when I'm making a call to the government website, and that would be kind of a request to response call. In that response, I'm just expecting that my call was successful or not. It's not that I'm expecting any response from the government website that he will issue me the permit ID in the same response. It would be just the request to response, whether my response was successful or not. And then government website will directly respond to the customer through the email on which they will issue the permit ID.
Well, may I know actually why you went with a continuation compared to the other technology or other patterns? Just justifications around that.
Yes, we have. I considered external services as well, enhanced external services. But here, because there may be different government website, and I don't know that whether they would be responding within seconds, or it may be longer call as well, and that's why, for safer option, I went with the continuation.
Can you explain me in details how the continuation works?
Yeah, so you need to have the Apex class. On that Apex class, you will have the continuation interface implemented. You can write multiple calls over there that you are basically making different calls, but at different time. So in the continuation, actually, when you LWC make a call to the visual controller, my continuation class gets fired, and then your visual force will wait until you are getting the response through the continuation. So that for managing the long process, continuation is used actually in the Apex class.
So which endpoint you're calling in this case? You're directly calling from Salesforce, you're calling the government endpoint directly?
No, it is happening through the ESP. So I'm going to make a call to ESP, and then ESP will make a call to the government website.
So how?
But I need to wait in Salesforce for the response, that whether it was successful or not, right? And that response will be captured in the Apex class.
How long do you expect the response to last longest?
20 seconds, I guess. 20 seconds. Sometimes 2 minutes as well, but yeah. Here I would assume that if it is taking more than 20 seconds, then it's long.
Okay.
And once there is an update in the government website, how that information flowing back to Salesforce?
So this is completely disjointed, because if the government received the application, government will directly reply to the customer. Government might reply through the email to the customer, because basically what government is doing, government is just responding with the permit ID, and that will go directly to the customer. So it's not through the integration, that is completely manual process. So someone on the government side will issue the permit and will send an email to the customer with permit details.
So how would they know what is the email address of the person?
So we would be sending those information, because we don't know at the moment that what all information we will be sending to the government. I'm assuming one of the parameters would be for which customer that permit is being applied for, and customers identification information like email address and a couple of other information will be sent to that call as well when we are making call.
Let's assume that the government website doesn't have the provisions for it. So what are you going to do for it? Government website only requires, let's say, the application number, and then they either create a permit ID. They don't have a place in their database to store customer email or customer details. What do you do in that case?
So in that case, it needs to be managed from Salesforce itself. So what will happen that first you make a call to the government and then create a task in Salesforce. So that generally it takes around 5 to 6 days to issue the permit ID. Then after 6-7 days again, you make a call to the government website to check the status, whether they have already issued the permit ID or not. So that will happen so that you need to make a call, request and response call from Salesforce by using the Lightning component and click a button and it will give you the permitted application ID if they have already issued.
So you're creating a task and assign it to someone, and then that someone will go into the system and click on the button again.
Yes, that's how they will, because it's a manual process.
So
otherwise, we can write a batch as well on ESP, which can run every day or maybe, and then we can fetch the data from the government website. That is also possible. And then batch can do the remote, and then from ESP, we can do the remote in calling to update Salesforce record. But here it is mentioned that it is directly going to the customer, and then my sales rep needs to check with the customer whether they have received the permit ID or not. And that's why I went with the task.
Can you please go to that? Can you please go to that requirement?
Yeah. Yeah, so it is mentioned that it will go to the customer within a week. It responds. So, and customer.
So government agency typically respond to the permit application within a week. Customers should receive an email with the response to the permit application along with the tracking number issued by the government agency.
Yeah. So that is why I was mentioning that I will create a task for the design consultant, so that for the sales rep, so that sales rep can check with the customer within a week.
Okay.
Thank you very much. Maybe I move on. You say that you use a custom object which is called training. Can you walk me through the rationale why you use this training object?
This is my external object, basically. Training would be containing information about the appropriate skills, trainings, what they would have completed. Trainings would be completed by the installers. And we need to, when my design consultant will try to find the installers, they need to, there would be a Lightning component from which we would be fetching information from the training. So this training will contain information about my design consultant skills as well, and then training completed by my installers as well.
Where is the training? Where is the external object hosted?
LMS. There is a different application here. LMS, Learning Management Systems.
Can you show me this LMS in your system landscape, please?
Yeah. I have drawn that on the Canvas application.
So how is Salesforce connected to the LMS system? How is the external object connected to the LMS system?
External object. So what I have, the way I have done that, if you want to go to the LMS, you can go through the Canvas application in Salesforce so that you can pass the context in the LMS information from Salesforce when you are uploading the LMS application inside Salesforce. And you can complete the training. And then once you have completed the training, then there is a backend which will make a call to ESP, and ESP will expose those information, the completed training, as an external object in Salesforce.
Okay, what is your rationale for external object?
So we need to have OData enabled here. And also why I went with this external object, because we have a reporting requirement as well, that my design consultant should be able to report on the training completed. And for that, I needed something in Salesforce, and external object is best fitted here. An external object is that there are a couple of restrictions over there, right? You cannot have record level setting that everybody can see it, but I don't see that information as a sensitive information. And also there are a couple of information that like you can have only 20,000 calls per year, per hour to ESP to fetch those information.
Let's just assume that this is sensitive information. How would that change your solution?
And also, if that will be a sensitive information and then I need to report as well, then I will have to have the custom object in Salesforce. If I don't have the reporting requirement, then I can go with just with the massive massive integration.
Let's go with the second one. You don't have a reporting requirement. So how would you solve the business requirement around the training?
So if that would be kind of a massive integration for me in that case, when my design consultant needs to find the LMS, find the right installer who would have done the training. So we will have a lightning component created for my design consultant. On the lightning component, they can provide a couple of parameters, and on submit of that, it will make a call to LMS backend to fetch the right training completed by the installers.
How is the installer identified in the LMS system against Salesforce?
So at least there should be one external ID which should be known to both the systems.
And how do you make sure that this external ID, I mean, the users already exist in the LMS system. How do you make sure that you match them up? This is not part of the scenario. This is an assumption.
No, that's right. So because my installers are also my LDAP users, and installers are the one who are going to be doing the training in LMS. So there has to be at least one element. I will look for at least one element which is present in both Salesforce and LMS, through which I can uniquely identify that LMS record. It has to be an email. It can be email or maybe a one unique ID which might be assigned to the installer. Which I'll be able to find.
Which do you suggest, email or unique ID?
Both are fine. So I will going with the either, I guess.
Okay, if you have to choose one, which one are you going for?
Email.
Okay, thank you very much.
Okay, can you please go to your data model for me?
Mm-hmm.
Okay, so you have pointed and created a case object here. Can you please explain to me which use case we are solving with the case?
Yeah, so we have a number of requirements, like customers can issue the case, raise the case as well if they will have any issues regarding the portal installation. So those would be go into the cases. So all the issues which are being raised would go into the issues.
Okay, and how do you arrive at this volume?
I just made this up basically. So it's not, they have not mentioned about any number of numbers. I just made that we will have around 750K. So this is just my assumption that this will have around 200K. If that assumption is not right, we can change that as well. So.
Okay, and how is your customer created in your system? And then the end users, the customers?
For this requirement, it is already mentioned that there is no process for creating. Yeah, I assume that it's already created when we are starting this.
Yeah, where are they stored?
Customers would be stored in because they will have the account and contact record. So they would be created as an account and contact record, and then you will enable those customers as community users. Then they would become the user record would be created for them as well in that case.
So it's only B2B accounts, right?
No, B2B plus B2C both. So I mentioned while giving the presentation that we would be having the person account enabled on account as well. So B2C will be there in person account, B2B would be in the account plus contact.
So who will be in B2B and who will be in a B2C in your user context? Or as in is your contact? There are so many variety of account and contact in your scenario. Can you explain to me who would be stored as account and contact in the B2B scenario and who would be stored in person account?
So here it is mentioned that we have individual plus multiple customers. So individual customers would be stored in my person account. Mm-hmm. And the company and the companies who are owning multiple sites, those companies will be present as my business account, and under business account, we will have multiple users who would be present in the contact account. Users of those companies would be there in contact.
And who would be owning your person account?
I have given them that everything would be owned by the sales rep itself. There is no explicit mention that how the customers would be created, and that's why I assume that sales rep would be owning everything.
Can you go to the first business process, which is on requirement number 2?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, so marketers, so your leads are being, can you just walk me through how this process is happening? The leads are getting created in marketer.
Yeah, so when the lead will be created, my marketer will qualify those leads by asking a couple of questions. And then my marketer will convert that lead into the account and and contact, and then potential projects will be created. So I'm making the assumption here that because when you are converting, you can assign who is going to on, right? On the conversion itself. So that's where marketer will assign one of the sales rep who will own them.
So marketer will decide who is going to own which account.
Yeah, or on the, yes, because there is no explicit mention that how that decision needs to happen. Otherwise, we can automate that process as well. While converting, you can have some trigger written, and when your is converted a status is true, then you can, based on the condition you might have, and based on the information you might have in the custom metadata or maybe in separate custom object, you can automate that assignment as well. But here, it's not explicitly mentioned.
Okay. Okay, so
okay, or I can go ahead. We have. Can you please walk me a little bit through the Chargent app and why you chose the Chargent app in specific and how it does it work in your solution?
Yeah. So we have mentioned here that once the invoice record will be created, my community users should be able to do the payment. So I assumed here that once you are logging to the community and doing the payment, you need to pass the credit card information as well. And because this system needs to be PCI compliant, you don't need to store any credit card information in Salesforce. So we have third-party systems like Chargent, which are available, which does this everything for you. So they will expose the way it works, that they create a couple of components which you can expose to the community user as well, where they can securely enter the credit card information and then do the payment through the payment gateway connected to the Chargent, and then you can store the tokenized version of that in Salesforce if you want. So you don't want to implement all these things from yourselves. That's why I went with the Chargent app.
Why should you store the tokenized version of the credit card data in your system?
If you need to, it's not explicitly mentioned that it needs to be, but if you need to, then Chargent will help you in that as well.
And what can you do with this token?
So next time, if your same customer is going to do the payment again, then the saved method can be utilized for the payment. They won't have to enter the credit card information again. Saved information, which is a tokenized version of the credit card, can be utilized for the payment again. That's where it will help.
Good. Thank you very much.
So you mentioned in your system landscape that you are going to use a Konga Composer and a DocuSign. So can you just walk me through how the authentication or authorization mechanism works between a Konga Composer and a Salesforce, and how the Konga Composer is handling out the document for a signature to the DocuSign?
Yeah, so Konga Composer would be used for generating documents. And the way, so whenever we install Konga Composer, we need to have some API key as well. And then you have a couple of in users, you need to create a couple of, it also gives you the permission to create permission set, and then you can assign a permission set who is basically going to use the Konga Composer for generating the documents. And my Konga Composer will it will fetch the data from multiple different objects from where it needs to be fetched, and it will create a file for you as well. And once the file would be created, and then you can utilize the DocuSign to send that file for signature to the customer. So you would be sending it through the email, and that's where you would be using the email envelope of which DocuSign provides, which will go to the customer. Customer can do the signature, and then it will update the record, and the signed version would be updated in Salesforce as well. And then you can also automate process like updating the fields and all those if you want to.
So where do you configure that the document got generated and I need to send it to the DocuSign?
So it's not happening automatically here, but if you need to do that, we can do that as well. We can write some trigger to do so. But here it's a very long process, So first your sales rep will create the document, and then he will send that document for signature. So it's a manual process, but if you need to automate that, we can do that as well, because Konga Composer DocuSign also creates a couple of custom objects where you can write trigger and do the automation.
Okay.
Okay, under project discovery and sales process, if you please go to the requirement number 5.1 specifically, can you explain to me how you want to solve that?
Yes, yeah. So I said that we would be having trigger. So when my potential project will be created as a order record in Salesforce, so we will have a trigger, and what that trigger will do, that trigger will find the right design consultant who would have completed the training, who will have the appropriate skills. And I'm assuming here that the design consultant skills would be present in my training object itself. So I will be fetching the data based on the information I would need on the order. I will fetch the relevant design consultant from the training, and I will then make that design consultant owner of that order record. That's how I will do it.
Can you suggest me something that is probably out of the box in Salesforce without doing any customization? Can I do something?
So yeah, we have a couple of things like appropriate skills, but I don't think we have omnichannel, but I don't know whether that works on order or not. Where we can utilize skill-based routing. I'm not 100% sure at the moment whether omnichannel works on order. If that works, then we can utilize that as well. Because that's where I can see we can have the availability. We can find based on the skills and based on the availability. That's how I can do this out of the box.
Okay.
Thank you very much. You talk about using Tableau CRM for some of your reporting requirements.
Yeah.
I have a couple of questions there. The first one is, how is the Tableau CRM exactly connected to Salesforce?
So based on my information, they have their own connectors, external connectors. And we have got, at the moment, I'm just connecting to the SPA and Salesforce. So they have their own connectors. You can go and you provide the Salesforce credential if you want to connect. And then we have got SPA backend as well, then you can connect with their own connectors. They have their own special connectors which you can utilize to connect.
Are you using Salesforce Live Data, or are you using copying the data into Tableau CRM?
Here, I'm using Salesforce Tableau CRM only for a specialty plant. And a specialty plant is the one which is containing the plant's information and all those information. So there's no need of live data here, but if you need to, we can use that as well.
So how do you fulfill the requirements that they should include the specific plants that have been reserved for the installations they are assigned to? Do you store the information about the installation as well in the specialty plant tool?
Yes, so this specialty plant would be used for reserving the plant, because my design consultant will be reserving the plants, and then my installers needs to purchase those plants, and we need to install a couple of information like these things. Each installation can include up to 5,000 species, and those information would be there in my specialty plan itself. And that's where I can expose on my report. I don't want to bring all those information in Salesforce.
So you bring the data of which plant is stored, which plant is linked to which installation, and who is the installation owner over to the SPA?
No. So those information would be there in Salesforce, because by using Tableau CRM, it can fetch the data from multiple systems. Salesforce in this case, where we are having those information, and then we have SPA.
So which data are you fetching in the Tableau CRM?
It does not have to be live data, but if we can do that as well, because in Tableau CRM we have features like you can get the live data, you can set the frequency and everything, so you can have both data.
Okay, can you summarize for me again? Which data are you bringing into Tableau CRM now?
Based on the information I have, so we can fetch data from Salesforce and SPA and can create a report in Tableau CRM. If we need to fetch the live data, we can enable that as well in Tableau CRM.
Okay, Thank
So
you very
what
much.
data you are fetching from what data? Sorry, I have a follow-up question on that. What data you are fetching from Salesforce? What data you are fetching from SPA, and to create your report in Tableau CRM?
So we need a couple of information from Salesforce, like against, like for order object. That's where I'm doing most of the installation. And then order object will have a ID, and with that ID, we would be able to fetch all the related plants reserved in SPA and all the related information under that plant. So those plant information and a specific information and the order information would be there, and we will have a mashup, and that would be used in reports.
How do you ensure the installer are only seeing their own data? How do you ensure the security of it?
Yeah, so we may utilize security predicates, which Salesforce with Tableau CRM offers. So we would be comparing the value by using the security predicates. So only the relevant information would be fetched.
Okay, so you'll replicate whatever sharing setting that you have in Salesforce by security predicate in Einstein or sorry, Tableau CRM.
It's not completely replicating. It's like you will have roles, couple of roles, and then you have. It's basically the way security predicates were. It's basically a comparison, right? So you need to pass a value, and then with that value, you need to get the value. So it's not a record level security, field level security, but the record level kind of you need to have present in both the system through which you will be able to. If you need to, well, it's not all those requirements are not present here, but if you need to do that, then you would be utilizing security predicates. And
the requirement says that they need to only see their own data. So that's why I'm asking that question. So installation they're assigned to. So how do you ensure that is what my question is, but that's fine.
Yeah.
Okay, going into your data migration, you talked about you will first insert accounts and then you will perform kind of some of the other related children records into the system. How are you planning to perform them? Can you please explain to me and what are the performance impacts?
Yeah, so I will be doing the upsert. And that's what I said, because what I said that before we will do the data migration, we will make sure that we have identified or created external ID outside of Salesforce. Okay. So first of all, account would be created and the external ID would be there. And then we have multiple sites, which needs to be migrated as well. So sites is my location. So those will have the external ID as well. So when we are upserting, we are doing the upsert, it can be automatically related. And that's where we are doing this outside to make sure that what would be the batch size through which there would be no performance impact. And also if you need to make sure that if you need to disable the automation process like validation or like flows, all those things can be deactivated as well. And that's why we are doing the dry run, right? Because that's where you will get an idea, because you will be doing this couple of times. So you will know what is the optimal batch size which can go without any performance problem. So that will also help you in planning that how much it is going to take so that you can plan for the products.
Johann, do we have any further time?
Yes, we have 10 more minutes.
Okay, so can you tell me about your data migration strategy? Like, how are you going to do the data migration? Like, is it one shot? You're going to do everything, or how is that?
So this is a 10 CRM. So we need to see whether because we have not talked about whether this is going to be the phase by phase approach, but yeah, the way it will happen that you need to do one by one. Maybe we have got 10 homegrown CRMs, then we can pick one and then do others. But we need to establish a repetitive process, right? And the repetitive process is like you need to do as much as possible outside of Salesforce. Like information, like you do the data cleansing exercise, you do the data standardizing exercise, and also make sure that deduplications have been done properly. And also, if you need any calculation needs to be done, that is also done outside. So you can just start uploading the data by using the bulk API in Salesforce. And we are already having the staging environment where you would be doing the test load, the migration testing, so that it will help you in optimizing your batch size and everything. So depends on the volume, how much data you will have. And through bulk API, you can upload only 150 million per day. So it depends. And also how much automation you have done. Can you upload 150 million per day, or you need to reduce your batch size, So all these things, if you are doing dry run before, then it will help you gauging that how much time it will take, right? So we would be having data team, which would be working with us in parallel, and with help of them, we would be optimizing all these things. That's how I would do it.
So if I'm going live on a Monday, so then I will do my data load on Sunday?
No, no, that's not how it works. No. So you need to be fully prepared, because it's not only the data migration you'll be doing. So it needs to be done. Maybe I would say at least a week prior to that, because after that you will have your users and everything you need to create, right, in the production. So, but by that time, before you will be in the position to load your data to the production, by that time you need to make sure that you have already done the dry run. You know that how much time it is going to take, so that you can do the planning, right? Because if you have uploaded a kind of full size data in the staging environment, you would have already known that how much time it is going to take. So if it just take 1 hour, then yes, you can do before 1 day. But if it take 2 weeks, then you cannot do just before your production day. So all this optimization exercise and planning exercise needs to happen before. And that's why we are doing the dry test load run, which will help me planning all these things.
Okay, and can I please understand your mobile strategy?
Yeah.
You've talked about native mobile.
Mm-hmm.
I just want to understand who's going to use your native mobile, who's going to, and how the internal users also use which kind of mobile application.
Yeah, so I actually forgot to draw one. So there are two mobile requirements here. One would be used by installers, and they have mentioned that installers sometimes go through on the iPad, and they don't always have internet connections. And that's where installer would be using the native mobile app. That is my external users. And for internal users, I would be using the standard mobile app, because they just need to capture the videos and photos and capture the GPS location that would be enabled through the Lightning component. So there would be two mobile apps: internal users, standard mobile app; installers, native mobile app developed through the SDK with the offline capability, having the smart sync in a smart store.
And given that, let's assume that I don't have any developers who could do my native mobile app. Do I have any other option or any other strategy that you can suggest to me, that I don't want to go through all this long process of creating a native mobile app?
You have, we can have mobile publisher, but that does not support offline capability. And that's why I didn't recommend actually, because we have that requirement that you have offline requirements, and mobile publisher does not support that. So that's why we need to have native mobile app.
Okay.
Yeah, just one question on the data migration. You mentioned about the data cleansing and standardization. So can you just help me understand who will provide those cleansing and standardization rules on, and at which part of the whole data migration process you will come to know that, okay, that this is the data need to be cleansed and all that, and how the approval process in context of the governance process that you have drawn earlier. Can you just please explain on that one?
Yeah, so yeah, it's a good one. So we need to have a data team as well included in my IT team here, who will help me. And also because we are having the program manager and a couple of people from different teams, like sales team or change management team we can bring. So here we would be setting up the rules. So we will have people from data team as well in my COE who will help me in understanding whether we have cleaned all the data, whether we have applied all the rules to identify the unique customers, because if they have been in the business, they would know how to identify. So they can give me all the rules which I can apply. And data cleansing, I mean that, sometimes you have because 10 CRMs. So in 10 CRMs, you can have the same data present in different formats, right? So we need to standardize those formats before we will upload in Salesforce. And to do that, we will take help of data team people present in their governance team who can help me with those rules.
So if you look at your environment strategy on which environment, you will be more confident that, okay, your data is qualified based upon that cleansing rule, because in the lower environment, you do not have a capacity, storage, and all those kind of stuff. So when you will be confident about, okay, this is the clean data and that can ready to go into production.
Okay, so I have not drawn explicitly, but we would be having a couple of sandbox for data team as well, which would be running in parallel, because they also need to go through the couple of iteration. I don't want to do that in my QA or UAT, because my UAT testers will be doing the testings, and I don't want to do that in the same instance. So we'll have a couple of sandbox created for data team, and on the lower environment, they can have 10% data, 20% data. In the full sandbox also, in UAT also, you can have some percentage of data. But in staging, we will be doing 100% load, like replica production. So here, staging will give me the full confidence that how much time it is going to take, whether we have all those or not. But in parallel, we would be having a couple of other sandboxes for data team, where we would be establishing those rules and we'll be checking those rules without affecting my normal testing, where my normal testing will be happening in QA, and that's where my testing team can also create the data. Smaller sets of data can do the testing. So I would be having parallel environments created for that.
Okay, just tell me actually then how the testing will be happen on a migrated data, on which environment that will happen?
UAT.
Okay, and does that mean that you are doing the migration steps on another environment? It means you need to have a 2 full copy sandbox?
Yeah, I have already have 2 full copies. So UAT is my full copy and staging is my full copy.
Okay, and going back to your system landscape, may I know on this particular diagram why there is an arrow from data warehouse to ETL?
Yeah, because I'm going to do the archiving process there. So that's why an archiving will be happening through ETL.
But archiving from where to where? Archiving from where to where?
Direction is not correct here, maybe, but it needs to be both way. If you need to have the BI reporting through on data warehouse, then yes, you need to fetch the data in Salesforce. Or here, it should be other way around, So my ETL will pick the data from archive data from Salesforce, and ETL will load those data into data warehouse. So direction is not right if you are asking me that.
And which system will do the deletion of the data in Salesforce?
So it will be hard delete. ETL will do that.
Okay.
After the data will be archived, it can be hard delete.